Bran watched the battlefield unfold like a chaotic symphony of mayhem. Humans were improvising at every turn, combining everyday items with sheer audacity to create a guerrilla resistance that was impossible to predict. As the Targ soldiers struggled to maintain any semblance of order, Bran's mind raced. How could they possibly combat an enemy that thrived on unpredictability and creativity? As another wave of humans charged the Targ positions, Bran felt a flicker of desperation. He had seen his share of bizarre tactics from various species, but nothing could have prepared him for this. A group of humans was now riding bicycles and scooters into battle, weaving in and out of the Targ lines while throwing water balloons filled with some noxious liquid that burned on contact. Bran winced as a Targ soldier stumbled, clutching his eyes, temporarily blinded by the substance. "Commander," an officer shouted from behind him, snapping him out of his stupor. "We need to respond quickly. The humans are exploiting our confusion." Bran turned, eyes flaring with anger. "We are the Targ. We will not be reduced to a mere joke for their amusement." But the determination in his voice was shaky. He needed to rein in the chaos that was spreading like wildfire among his troops. "Get the plasma cannons prepared for a focused strike," he commanded. "We'll target their command points and attempt to cut off their supply lines." Valis nodded, but there was a flicker of doubt in his expression. "With all due respect, sir, we may be underestimating them. Their tactics are unlike anything we've seen. They could easily ambush us while we concentrate our fire." Bran's mandibles clicked with frustration. "Do it anyway. We need to take decisive action. Our forces are faltering. If we allow them to keep the momentum, we may lose this city." The officers scrambled to follow orders, but as Bran turned back to the viewport, he felt the weight of uncertainty settle on his shoulders. They had always relied on technology, training, and superior tactics to secure victory. Now, facing an enemy that found strength in chaos and absurdity, they were at a distinct disadvantage. Bran's thoughts were interrupted as a massive commotion erupted outside the base. He glanced down just in time to see a horde of humans charging forward on a makeshift parade float decorated with balloons and streamers. They were laughing and chanting, a stark contrast to the disciplined formations of his troops. One human in particular, wearing a ridiculous costume that resembled a giant chicken, stood at the front of the float, waving a banner that read, "Welcome to Earth, Targ." Bran felt a surge of rage. This is an invasion, not a celebration. "Engage them!" But before the order could be relayed, the float burst forward, crashing into the Targ barricades, sending soldiers and debris flying. The human crowd erupted in cheers as they poured off the float, using anything they could find, cooking pots, trash can lids, even garden gnomes, as weapons. It was complete mayhem, and Bran could only watch in disbelief as his troops were overwhelmed by this bizarre yet effective onslaught. "Commander, they're flanking us," Valis shouted. "We need to retreat and regroup." Bran clenched his jaw, refusing to entertain the notion of retreat. "We will not run from these lunatics. We are Targ. We will not be made fools of." But even as he said it, he could feel the resolve within his own troops waning. The humans pressed forward, their movements fueled by laughter and an unshakable determination. A group of teenagers wielding squirt guns filled with a sticky, bright-colored liquid sprayed the Targ soldiers, rendering their vision obscured and their weapons useless. The Targ, trained to deal with high-tech warfare, were caught off guard by the sheer absurdity of the assault. In the chaos, Bran spotted a small cluster of humans setting up what looked like a makeshift catapult made from salvaged materials. His eyes widened in horror as they loaded it with watermelons and other fruits, clearly preparing to launch them at his troops. "Valis! Stop them!" he shouted, but the order was drowned out by the cacophony of battle. The catapult released with a loud twang, and the watermelons soared through the air like projectiles of pure chaos. They splattered against Tark soldiers, causing confusion and chaos as troops slipped and stumbled in the mess. The laughter of the humans only intensified as they saw the effectiveness of their bizarre strategy. "We can't sustain this," Bran yelled to Valis. "Fall back to the secondary position. Regroup and fortify." Valis nodded, rallying the troops to execute the retreat, but even as they moved, Bran felt the weight of failure bearing down on him. Each step back felt like an admission of defeat, and yet, with every passing moment, the humans were proving to be a formidable force unlike anything he had ever faced. As the Tark forces fell back, Bran found himself in a haze of frustration and disbelief. He couldn't fathom how a species so seemingly disorganized could dismantle his meticulously structured military. The humans were leveraging their chaos to great effect, and it was clear that this invasion would require a fundamental shift in approach. By the time they reached the secondary position, Bran was panting with rage and exhaustion. He looked out over the makeshift defenses they had constructed, fortified with whatever debris they could find. Humans were swarming the streets below, forming ranks out of sheer enthusiasm, seemingly energized by their success. "Commander," Valis said, his antenna twitching with anxiety, "we need to reassess our strategy. They're not fighting to win in a traditional sense. They're fighting to disrupt us, to draw us into their madness." Bran slammed a claw against the command console, sending a jolt of static through the room. "I refuse to accept that. We will not be overrun by this chaos. We must find a way to counter their tactics, to regain control." Valis hesitated, then spoke up. "Lure them into positions where we can exploit their chaos. If they want to play games, we can turn their own tactics against them." Bran paused, the wheels in his mind turning. "A trap, you say? Use their reckless behavior against them. It's risky, but if we can anticipate their moves." "Exactly," Valis said, his antennae perked up with a glimmer of hope. "If we can understand their patterns, even in their chaos, we might just be able to turn the tide." Bran felt a surge of determination. "All right. Prepare the troops for a different kind of engagement. We'll set up decoys, bait them into our lines, and take them out before they realize what's happening." As the Tark forces readied themselves for a new strategy, Bran couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into uncharted territory. The humans had thrown everything he knew about warfare into disarray, and now he was determined to adapt and overcome. The night passed in tense silence, with Tark soldiers working feverishly to prepare their new tactics. As dawn broke, Bran felt a mixture of excitement and dread coursing through him. They were about to face the humans again, but this time, it would be on their terms. Hours later, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, the humans approached once more, charging toward the Tark defenses with their characteristic exuberance. Bran watched from the command center, heart pounding, as they came into view. The humans were shouting and waving improvised flags, but something in their demeanor felt different this time. "Are they hesitant?" Valis murmured, observing the human lines. "It's as if they're unsure." Bran narrowed his eyes. Perhaps they're sensing a change in the atmosphere. We need to remain vigilant. The first wave of humans surged forward, led by a group wielding baseball bats and trash can lids. But as they entered the designated kill zone, Brand's troops activated their traps. A series of loud noises erupted, stunning the humans as they were caught off guard by hidden snares and obstacles set up throughout the area. The chaos that had once worked in favor of the humans began to falter. Tarek's soldiers sprang into action, launching their own counteroffensive. Brand's strategy was finally starting to bear fruit as his troops took advantage of the momentary confusion. They fired plasma shots with precision, targeting clusters of humans that had become disoriented. "Now!" Brand commanded, his voice booming over the chaos. "Push forward! Take the initiative!" The Tarek forces rallied, charging out from their defenses with renewed vigor. As they advanced, they targeted the most prominent human figures, the ones leading the charge. Brand felt a surge of hope. Perhaps they could finally turn the tide of this bizarre conflict. But then, amidst the confusion, something unexpected happened. A new wave of humans appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. They were adorned in strange costumes, riding on bizarre contraptions that looked like something out of a child's imagination. One human was on a unicycle, juggling flaming torches, while another group was riding scooters and throwing glitter bombs into the fray. Brand felt his jaw drop in disbelief. What is this madness? The chaos intensified as the Tarek forces struggled to adapt to this new onslaught. The humans' antics disrupted the order Brand had fought so hard to establish. They began to blend comedy and warfare into a spectacle that was as confusing as it was effective. "Sir, we're losing ground," Valis shouted, scrambling to regain control of the battlefield. Brand's mind raced, scrambling for a solution. The humans weren't just fighting anymore, they were entertaining themselves and their people. The absurdity of it all was starting to shake his confidence. We need to adapt again. Change tactics. But as the battle raged on, Brand realized they were losing control of the narrative. The humans were thriving in this chaotic environment, using their creativity to counter every move the Tarek made. The laughter and chaos were spreading, and even some of his troops seemed momentarily enchanted by the spectacle. "Get a hold of yourself!" Brand yelled at his soldiers. "We are Tarek. We will not be made fools of." He watched as they began to regroup, trying to remember their training amid the pandemonium. It was then that Brand understood the power of the human spirit. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for joy, for freedom, for their very existence, and they found strength in the absurd. Determined not to be outmatched by their madness, Brand called for a new approach. "Spread the word to our units. We need to unify our forces and engage in a tactical retreat to reorganize. We will not let them see our fear. They may thrive in chaos, but we will leverage our training and discipline." As his troops pulled back to a fortified position, Brand knew this battle was far from over. The humans had surprised him time and time again, but he wouldn't let them claim victory so easily. They might have the element of chaos, but he had the strength of discipline and strategy. Days turned into weeks as the battle raged on. The Tarek forces managed to stabilize their lines, countering human tactics with improved traps and stronger formations. Brand had learned to anticipate human creativity, and while their methods were often unpredictable, he was beginning to grasp the essence of their approach. Yet, even as they began to regain control, The Targ forces were haunted by the specter of those absurd moments. The sight of humans charging on unicycles or throwing glitter bombs became an emblem of what they were up against, a species that refused to be confined by rules or traditional warfare. One night, as Bran reviewed the ongoing battle reports, Valis entered the command room with a new piece of intelligence. "Commander, we've intercepted a human broadcast again. It appears they're turning this conflict into a media event." Bran felt a wave of irritation wash over him. "What now? Another mockery?" Valis nodded, his antenna twitching nervously. "They're framing their resistance as a grassroots movement, rallying their people through entertainment and absurdity. They're gaining support from all corners of their planet." Bran's mandibles clicked together, anger boiling just beneath the surface. "They are using our struggles for their gain. We must counter this narrative." Valis hesitated. "But how, sir?" "They thrive on the chaos. Perhaps we should try to understand their motivations instead of simply fighting against them." Bran felt the tension between them. "We can't understand madness. We can only contain it. They have no discipline, no order. They revel in their disarray." "But it seems to be working for them," Valis countered gently. "If we can learn to incorporate some of their unpredictability into our strategies, we might turn the tide of this conflict." Bran thought for a moment, the gears in his mind turning. "You think we can learn from their absurdity? Utilize their chaos against them?" Valis nodded. "It may be the only way. If we can embrace unpredictability while maintaining our core principles, we may create an entirely new form of combat." Bran considered the possibility. It was risky, but it could be the edge they needed. "Very well. We will integrate some of their tactics into our training. We'll form specialized units designed to respond to human creativity. If they want chaos, we'll give them chaos our way." The weeks that followed were a tumultuous period of adjustment. The Targ forces began to experiment with new strategies, introducing unpredictable elements into their formations. They used their technology in bizarre ways, from deploying drones equipped with confetti bombs to creating sound distractions that echoed through the battlefield. As the next battle approached, Bran felt a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. This was a departure from everything he had ever known about warfare, but it was necessary if they were to turn the tide. When the humans launched their next wave of attacks, they were met with an unexpected response. Targ troops, equipped with both discipline and a newfound sense of unpredictability, engaged the humans with a combination of technology and absurdity. The humans were initially thrown off balance, unsure of how to respond to this unorthodox Targ strategy. Targ soldiers would jump into action, launching strange projectiles that exploded in bursts of color, creating a dazzling yet disorienting spectacle. Others would set up elaborate distractions that left the humans baffled and disoriented. "Now!" Bran commanded, seizing the moment. "Push forward!" The Targ forces advanced, utilizing their newfound chaos to create openings in the human lines. The humans, who had once reveled in their unpredictability, found themselves caught off guard as the Targ began to play their own game. The tide was finally shifting. Yet, even as the Targ pressed forward, Bran could see the human spirit shining through. They rallied, quickly adapting to the new tactics, using their laughter and creativity to regain momentum. The battlefield became a whirlwind of chaos and confusion, a mix of Targ discipline and human absurdity. In the thick of it all, Bran encountered a human soldier, a young woman with bright pink hair, armed with what looked like a tennis racket. She swung it at a Targ soldier, and for a moment, their eyes locked. In that instant, Bran saw something unexpected: determination, resilience, and a willingness to fight against all odds. Without thinking, Bran raised his plasma weapon and fired, narrowly missing her. The shot hit the ground nearby, sending a shockwave through the area. The human woman stumbled back, startled but undeterred. "Is this the best you can do?" she shouted, her voice filled with a mix of bravado and defiance. Bran felt a surge of something he hadn't expected: respect. This human wasn't backing down, even in the face of overwhelming odds. "We are not finished yet," he roared back, feeling a strange connection in that moment. The battle raged on around them, each side refusing to relent. As the Targ pressed forward, Bran found himself inspired by the sheer tenacity of the humans. They fought for their homes, their families, and the right to exist without the shadow of tyranny. In that moment, Bran understood the true essence of their struggle. As the fight continued, the atmosphere shifted once again. The Targ soldiers, emboldened by their newfound unpredictability, began to push the humans back. They managed to surround a group of them, and it was clear the tide was turning. The humans, though brave and resilient, were starting to waver under the pressure of a more coordinated Targ strategy. But the young woman with the pink hair wouldn't give up. She turned to her fellow humans, shouting words of encouragement, her voice ringing out above the chaos. "Don't let them take your spirit. Fight with everything you have. We are more than this invasion." As Bran watched her lead the charge, he felt a spark of admiration. This was no longer just a battle, it was a clash of ideals, a struggle for existence. The humans might be chaotic, but their heart was undeniable. In that moment, Bran made a decision. "Valis," he bellowed, his voice cutting through the noise. "Fall back to a defensive position. We'll give them space to regroup." Valis blinked in surprise. "Sir? Are you sure? We have the advantage now." "I understand," Bran replied, his voice firm. "But we cannot simply crush their spirit. There is more at stake here than mere conquest. We must show them that we are not the monsters they believe us to be." With that, the Targ forces pulled back, creating an unexpected gap in their lines. Bran could see the confusion on the faces of the humans. They hesitated, unsure of what to do with this sudden shift. But the young woman in pink stood tall, rallying her comrades as they began to regroup. "Hold your ground," she shouted, her voice steady. "We will not let this end here." As the humans steadied themselves, Bran took a moment to reflect. They had fought valiantly, and in doing so, they had earned his respect. Perhaps this conflict could lead to something greater, a chance for understanding instead of destruction. As the dust began to settle, Bran found himself caught between the remnants of battle and the budding possibility of peace. The humans were no longer simply an obstacle to overcome, they were a force of nature, imbued with creativity, resilience, and an indomitable spirit. The next few weeks were a blur of tense negotiations, chaotic battles, and unexpected camaraderie. The humans, spurred on by their renewed determination, pressed forward with new strategies that blended their absurdity with newfound tactical awareness. They began to acknowledge the Targ's prowess, leading to moments of unexpected collaboration. Bran found himself in discussions with human leaders, exchanging ideas on how to combat the oppressive forces that threatened both their worlds. It was a gradual process, fraught with tension and misunderstandings, but slowly, the seeds of cooperation began to take root. As the conflict transitioned from outright battle to tentative diplomacy, Bran realized that this was not merely a fight for territory. It was a struggle for identity, for mutual respect, and for the right to exist in a universe that could often be harsh and unforgiving. Through it all, he couldn't shake the memory of the young woman with the pink hair, the embodiment of the spirit that had fueled their resistance. She had shown him that even in the midst of chaos, there was beauty, determination, and hope. As the Tark forces and humans began to forge a fragile alliance, Bran knew that the road ahead would be long and challenging. But for the first time since the invasion began, he felt a sense of hope. Perhaps they could move beyond this absurd conflict, creating something greater than themselves. Together, they could carve out a future built on understanding, cooperation, and the shared strength of their respective spirits. The battles had transformed them, and as they faced the uncertainty of what lay ahead, they did so with a newfound respect for one another. In the grand tapestry of the universe, their threads had become intertwined, creating a story that would continue long after the echoes of battle had faded. And as Bran looked out over the horizon, watching the dawn of a new era break over the battlefield, he felt a deep sense of conviction. The chaos had not defeated them, it had opened their eyes to the beauty of connection, the power of unity, and the undeniable strength of the human spirit. Together, they would forge a path toward a future that was uncertain but filled with promise, a future where both Tark and human could stand side by side, not as conquerors and conquered, but as allies in a shared journey toward understanding and coexistence. In the heart of chaos, they had found hope, and in hope, they had discovered the possibility of a better tomorrow. And as Bran took his first steps toward that future, he couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, a story waiting to unfold in the vast tapestry of the cosmos. The Tark and humans would continue to navigate the challenges that lay ahead, but together they would find strength in their differences, creating a bond that transcended the absurdities of their past. In the end, they were not just two species fighting for survival, they were two worlds, united in their quest for understanding and peace, ready to face whatever challenges the universe might throw their way. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Bran stood tall, a newfound resolve coursing through him. The future was uncertain, but together they would carve a path toward a brighter tomorrow. The chaos that had once threatened to destroy them had instead ignited a spark of hope, a hope that would guide them forward into the vast unknown, hand in hand, as they embraced their shared journey. And as he looked out over the battlefield that had once been a stage for conflict, Bran felt a sense of peace settle within him. They would overcome the absurdity, not by erasing it, but by learning to embrace it as a part of their shared story. The narrative of their lives would continue to unfold, each chapter more vibrant than the last, woven together by threads of courage, resilience, and the unbreakable bond of humanity. It was a future worth fighting for, a future where chaos and creativity danced hand in hand, where the laughter of humans and the strength of Tark united to create a symphony of hope that would echo through the stars for generations to come.